The crystalline walls of the Valkyrie research facility hummed with quantum resonance, their surfaces refracting light in impossible patterns that would have driven most organic beings to madness. But Dr. Sarah Chen had long since learned to close her eyes to the worst of it, focusing instead on the steady rhythm of her breathing. 37 days in captivity had taught her that much, at least. The Valkyrie guards outside her containment chamber shifted their crystalline forms, their thoughts radiating disapproval in waves of purple light. They couldn't understand how she remained so calm, so collected. According to their scans, her neural patterns should have degraded weeks ago. Specimen 247 maintains unusual stability. One guard transmitted to the other, their crystalline form pulsing with confusion. Perhaps the preliminary studies were flawed. Sarah suppressed a smile. She'd learned their language, if you could call it that, by watching the patterns of light that rippled through their crystalline bodies. The Valkyrie was so convinced of their superiority that it hadn't occurred to them that a primitive organic could comprehend their communications. The door to her chamber dissolved, revealing Chief Researcher Vex Tari, their former perfect dodecahedron of translucent crystal. The human specimen will be prepared for today's testing, they announced, patterns of light dancing through their faceted surface. Sarah stood slowly, deliberately. "I have a name," she said, knowing they would ignore her words as they always did. To them, she was simply an interesting puzzle, a curiosity that somehow survived in an organic shell instead of evolving into a proper crystalline form like the advanced species of the galaxy. As they led her through the twisting corridors of the facility, Sarah carefully mapped every turn in her mind. The Valkyrie believed that organic beings lacked the capacity for complex spatial awareness, another assumption she was happy to let them maintain. The walls around them pulsed with data streams, and Sarah found herself instinctively reading them, shipping manifests, research notes, security protocols, all flowing past in rivers of light. They arrived at the testing chamber, a vast space filled with quantum scanning equipment. Other Valkyrie researchers gathered around, their crystalline forms refracting the light in excited patterns. Today's test appeared to be drawing quite an audience. "Begin quantum resistance assessment," Vex Tari commanded. Standard protocol. The air around Sarah began to shimmer as quantum fields activated, designed to test the limits of organic neural resistance. The Valkyrie expected her to break down within minutes, as most organic beings did when exposed to quantum interference. But Sarah had spent years studying xenobiology on Earth, specializing in extreme adaptations. She understood something the Valkyrie, for all their advanced technology, did not. Life finds a way. As the quantum fields intensified, Sarah felt the familiar pressure building in her mind. But instead of fighting it, she let it flow through her, using meditation techniques she'd learned from studying deep-sea creatures that survived in extreme pressures. The Valkyrie observers vibrated with increasing agitation as their readings made no sense. "Impossible," one researcher transmitted. "The organic shell should have begun deteriorating by now." Sarah focused on her breathing, remembering the lessons learned from studying tardigrades, those microscopic Earth creatures that could survive almost anything. The human brain was remarkably adaptable, capable of creating new neural pathways in response to environmental challenges. What the Valkyrie saw as primitive weakness was, in fact, her greatest strength. Hours passed, and still Sarah stood, sweat beading on her forehead, but otherwise unchanged. The quantum fields reached levels that should have reduced any organic matter to its component atoms. The Valkyrie's agitation turned to alarm. "Cease testing," Vex Tari finally ordered, the crystalline form pulsing with disturbed patterns. "The specimen requires further study." As they led her back to her chamber, Sarah noticed something different. The quantum streams in the walls seemed clearer, more defined. She could almost reach out and touch them with her mind. The exposure to the quantum fields hadn't broken her. It had changed her. Back in her chamber, Sarah sat cross-legged on the floor, closing her eyes to better focus on this new awareness. The Valkyrie believed that organic beings were evolutionary dead ends, incapable of interfacing with the quantum realm that they considered the height of existence. But what if they were wrong? What if organic life, with its infinite capacity for adaptation, could bridge gaps they never imagined possible? Through the walls, she could hear the agitated discussions of her captors. They were beginning to fear her, though they would never admit it. Their perfectly ordered worldview was cracking, like faults appearing in crystal. The specimen demonstrates unprecedented capabilities, Vextari was saying. We must determine if this is unique to this organism or if— They paused, their light patterns showing clear distress. Or if we have fundamentally misunderstood the potential of organic life. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. In their arrogance, the Valkyrie had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that because humans hadn't evolved into crystalline forms, they were inferior. They never considered that perhaps humans had evolved something far more valuable: adaptability. In the darkness of her chamber, Sarah began to experiment with her new awareness. The quantum streams that flowed through the facility's walls were becoming more than just visible. They were becoming tangible to her altered consciousness. She reached out with her mind, gently, carefully, and felt one respond to her touch. The implications were staggering. If she could learn to control this, to harness it, but patience was crucial. The Valkyrie's greatest weakness was their certainty in their own superiority. Let them continue their tests. Let them gather their data and draw their flawed conclusions. Sarah would wait and learn and grow stronger. From somewhere deep in the facility, she felt other presences stirring, other organic beings held in containment, each struggling with their own quantum exposure. Perhaps they too were changing, adapting. Perhaps humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy would not be technological advancement or military might, but the simple, profound ability to adapt and evolve. As the facility's lights dimmed to simulate night cycle, Sarah began her preparations. The Valkyrie had wanted to study human resilience. They were about to learn far more than they had bargained for about the true potential of organic life. In the darkness, quantum streams whispered their secrets to her, and Sarah Chen, the simple, organic specimen, began to weave a plan that would shake the foundations of the Valkyrie Empire's understanding of life itself. The facility's quantum streams pulsed with unusual patterns as Sarah Chen lay motionless in her chamber. Her consciousness extended far beyond her physical form. 3 days had passed since the failed quantum resistance test, and her abilities were growing stronger by the hour. Each quantum stream now sang to her like a distinct thread in an infinite tapestry. Vextari and their research team had doubled their testing protocols, desperate to understand how an organic being could not only survive but thrive under quantum exposure. Their confusion manifested in increasingly erratic light patterns that rippled through their crystalline forms. Sarah watched them through half-closed eyes, reading their agitation like an open book. The specimen's neural architecture is reforming, a junior researcher reported, their form flickering with uncertainty. The organic pathways are integrating quantum elements without losing structural integrity. Vextari's response was immediate and harsh. Impossible. Organic systems lack the fundamental framework for quantum integration. Run the tests again. But Sarah knew better. During her years studying Earth's extremophiles, she documented countless examples of life adapting to supposedly impossible conditions. The tardigrades that survived the vacuum of space, bacteria thriving in radioactive waste, and fungi that could digest plastic, life always found a way to evolve and adapt. Through the quantum streams, she had begun to sense other presences in the facility. In a chamber 3 levels below, a meridian shapeshifter was unconsciously reaching out through the quantum field, its cellular structure resonating with frequencies similar to her own. 2 levels above, a Zurian empath was developing quantum sensitivity that amplified its natural abilities. They were all changing, all adapting. The Valkyrie's arrogance had led them to create the perfect evolutionary pressure cooker. During one particularly intense scanning session, Sarah decided to test her growing abilities. As Vextari adjusted the quantum field harmonics, she reached out with her consciousness and ever so slightly altered the stream's frequency. The effect was subtle but immediate. The readings shifted just enough to suggest her abilities were actually decreasing. "See," Vextari announced triumphantly to their assembled team. "The anomalous readings were merely temporary adaptations. The organic system is returning to its base limitations." Sarah suppressed a smile. Let them believe what they wanted. Her true advantage lay in their inability to conceive of an organic being outsmarting them. Their crystalline evolution had given them tremendous advantages, but had also locked them into rigid patterns of thought. As weeks passed, Sarah continued her subtle manipulations of both equipment and perceptions. She learned to reach out to other specimens through the quantum streams, establishing a primitive form of communication. Each species experienced the quantum realm differently, but all were adapting in their own unique ways. The Meridian shapeshifter, who called itself Flux, showed her how its species' natural cellular plasticity allowed for quantum field manipulation. The Zurian empath, known as Ven, taught her how to sense the emotional resonance carried in quantum frequencies. In return, Sarah shared her understanding of adaptive evolution and the power of cognitive flexibility. One night, as the facility's energy cycled to its lowest ebb, Sarah made a breakthrough. She discovered she could not only read and manipulate the quantum streams, but actually merge her consciousness with them momentarily. The experience was overwhelming. In those brief seconds, she could sense every corner of the facility, every being within it, every pulse of energy flowing through its crystalline walls. The revelation came with a startling understanding. The Valkyrie's biological evolution into crystalline forms hadn't been an advancement at all, it had been a dead end. They had gained the ability to naturally interface with quantum fields, but lost the crucial ability to adapt and change. They were locked in their perfect, unchanging forms while organic life continued to evolve and adapt. Vextari, however, was beginning to suspect something was amiss. Their observations became more intense, their tests more precisely targeted. The specimen's behavioral patterns suggest a level of cognitive processing that exceeds documented capabilities. They transmitted to their superior, unaware that Sarah could now intercept their communications. The response came swiftly. "If the organic demonstrates genuine quantum sensitivity, terminate the specimen immediately. The implications would be too dangerous to our established order." Sarah knew her time was growing short. The Valkyrie would not allow evidence of organic superiority to exist. It would shatter the foundation of their society's beliefs. She needed to accelerate her plans. That night, as the facility's systems dimmed, Sarah reached out through the quantum streams to all the other specimens. One by one, she connected with them, sharing her discoveries and her growing understanding of the quantum realm. The response was immediate and overwhelming, a chorus of minds awakening to new possibilities. "We are not lesser beings," she transmitted through the quantum field. "We are not evolutionary dead ends. We are the next step forward, beings capable of bridging the organic and quantum realms, and soon we will prove it." The Valkyrie had built their empire on the assumption that their crystalline evolution represented the pinnacle of existence. They had constructed vast networks of quantum technology, believing only their species could truly master it. But they had failed to consider a fundamental truth: in the face of pressure, life adapts. And humanity, with its remarkable neural plasticity and unending drive to survive and understand, was about to demonstrate just how powerful that adaptation could be. As Sarah Chen lay in her chamber, preparing for what was to come, the quantum streams sang with the combined consciousness of dozens of awakening minds. The Valkyrie's perfect crystal prison was about to shatter, and from its fragments would emerge something entirely new, a fusion of organic adaptability and quantum mastery that would change the galaxy forever. The mind game was ending. The revolution was about to begin. The quantum streams hummed with a new frequency, one that the Valkyrie's instruments couldn't detect, but Sarah Chen could feel in every cell of her being. It had been 62 days since her capture, and the facility had become an orchestra of consciousness with Sarah as its conductor. Through the quantum fields, she could sense every awakened specimen, their minds joining in a symphony of resistance. Vextari stood before their research council, their crystalline form flickering with distress patterns that Sarah monitored through the facility's quantum network. The organic specimens are exhibiting unprecedented synchronization patterns, they reported. Cell samples from multiple species show quantum entanglement at a molecular level. The council chamber erupted in chaotic light patterns, the Valkyrie equivalent of outraged shouting. Sarah smiled in her cell, knowing their rigid minds couldn't comprehend what was happening. They had created their own downfall by assuming that organic life was inherently inferior to their crystalline existence. Through the quantum streams, Sarah reached out to Flux, the Meridian shapeshifter. "Are the others ready?" Flux's response came as a ripple of quantum energy. The Zurian empaths have spread awareness to the lower levels. The chlorophyte collective consciousness has integrated with the facility's bio-organic systems. "We await your signal." Sarah had discovered that each species brought unique capabilities to their quantum awakening. The Meridians could alter their physical form to manipulate quantum hardware. The Zurian empaths could project emotions through quantum fields, affecting even the crystalline Valkyrie. The chlorophytes, a plant-based species, could interface directly with the facility's bio-organic components. But it was humanity's gift, the ability to adapt, to synthesize, to bring disparate elements together, that had made their resistance possible. Sarah had become a bridge, not just between organic and quantum realms, but between different species and their various evolutionary paths. The facility's quantum streams carried whispers of confusion and fear among the Valkyrie staff. Their instruments were reporting impossible readings, systems were behaving erratically, and the organic specimens were showing brainwave patterns that defied their understanding of biology. Sarah felt a subtle shift in the quantum field. Vextari was approaching her chamber. She composed herself, maintaining the appearance of a docile research subject. The chamber door dissolved, and the chief researcher entered, their crystalline form pulsing with suspicious patterns. "Your latest test results are anomalous," Vextari stated, their thought patterns sharp with accusation. "Explain how an organic system can maintain quantum coherence at cellular levels." Sarah met their gaze steadily. "Perhaps," she suggested, "you should consider that your understanding of organic life is flawed. Evolution doesn't follow a single path to advancement." Vextari's form flickered with dismissal. "Organic systems are inherently chaotic and limited. The crystalline form represents the perfect union of biology and quantum mechanics." "Perfect." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Or perfectly static. When was the last time your species truly changed, truly adapted to a new challenge?" The quantum streams around them trembled with Vextari's agitation. "You dare to suggest." "I suggest nothing," Sarah interrupted. "I merely observe. While you remained unchanged in your crystal perfection, organic life continued to evolve, to adapt, to find new ways of surviving and thriving. And now," she reached out through the quantum field, touching the facility's systems with her mind. Around them, the lights flickered, and the walls hummed with new frequencies. Vextari's form vibrated with alarm as they realized their quantum-based security systems were responding to organic commands. "Impossible," they transmitted, their thought patterns fracturing with fear. Sarah stood, allowing her consciousness to fully merge with the quantum field. The effect was immediate and visible. Her body took on a subtle luminescence, organic matter harmonizing with quantum energy in a way the Valkyrie had deemed impossible. "You imprisoned us because you feared what you couldn't understand," she said, her voice resonating with quantum harmonics. "You studied us because you couldn't accept that there might be other paths to evolution. And now you're about to learn what truly adaptable life forms can become." Through the quantum streams, she sent the signal that hundreds of awakened minds had been waiting for. Throughout the facility, specimen chambers opened as security systems responded to organic commands. The chlorophyte collective consciousness invaded the facility's bioorganic networks, seizing control of environmental systems. Meridian shapeshifters flowed through quantum hardware, disrupting crystalline protocols. Vextari tried to activate emergency containment measures, but their commands found no purchase in systems that now sang with organic quantum frequencies. "What have you done?" they demanded, their form pulsing with panic. "We've evolved," Sarah answered simply, "something you forgot how to do long ago." The symphony of life rose to a crescendo as hundreds of organic beings, each now quantum-aware, joined their consciousness through the facility's networks. The Valkyrie's perfectly ordered world dissolved into chaos as their prisoners demonstrated just how far organic life could advance when pushed to adapt. Alarms blared throughout the facility, their crystalline tones distorted by new quantum frequencies. Security forces found their weapons useless against beings who could manipulate quantum fields with organic precision. The Valkyrie's greatest strength, their natural connection to quantum mechanics, had become their greatest vulnerability against enemies who could adapt and evolve their quantum abilities in real time. Sarah reached out to the awakened minds around her, orchestrating their efforts with the same precision she had once used to study microscopic life forms on Earth. Each species played its part in their revolution, the Meridians disrupting security systems, the Zillions projecting waves of confusion among the Valkyrie, the Chlorophytes rerouting facility power. And humanity's part? Sarah smiled as she felt other human prisoners awakening to their quantum potential, their naturally adaptable minds grasping and mastering abilities the Valkyrie had thought impossible. They were becoming something new, not crystalline beings locked in eternal stasis, but organic life forms capable of bridging worlds and evolving beyond current understanding. The symphony of life grew stronger, and the perfect crystal walls of the Valkyrie's prison began to crack under the pressure of unstoppable evolution. The revolution was no longer coming, it had arrived, and it sang with the voice of 1,000,000,000,000 cells adapting, evolving, and reaching for the stars. The Valkyrie Research Facility, once a monument to crystalline order, had become a storm of quantum chaos. Organic minds merged with quantum fields in ways that defied the established laws of both biology and physics. At the heart of this transformation stood Sarah Chen, her consciousness expanded far beyond the boundaries of her physical form. Through the quantum streams, she watched as centuries of Valkyrie certainty crumbled. Security forces found their crystalline weapons useless against beings who could bend quantum fields with organic flexibility. The perfectly ordered hallways became battlegrounds where the very nature of evolution was being redefined. The specimen containment zones in sectors 7 through 12 have been compromised. A Valkyrie commander reported, their crystalline form fracturing with stress. "The organics are, they're using our quantum networks against us." Sarah guided the newly awakened through their quantum metamorphosis. Each species brought unique contributions to their resistance. The Meridian shapeshifters flowed through quantum circuitry like living mercury, disrupting Valkyrie control systems. Zillion empaths projected waves of confusion that left crystalline minds scattered and disoriented. The Chlorophyte Collective had spread through the facility's bioorganic framework, turning the very walls into allies. But it was the human prisoners who demonstrated the most remarkable adaptations. Their neural plasticity, combined with their innate drive to understand and master their environment, led to quantum innovations that even Sarah hadn't anticipated. They weren't just adapting to quantum fields, they were reshaping them. The quantum harmonics are shifting. Vextari's panicked transmission cut through the chaos. They're creating interference patterns that shouldn't be possible. Our crystalline resonance is destabilizing. Sarah felt a moment of pity for the Valkyrie. Their evolution into crystalline forms had given them natural quantum abilities, but it also trapped them in rigid patterns of existence. They couldn't adapt to the organic quantum manifestations that now filled their facility. Their perfect evolution had become their perfect prison. Through the quantum fields, she sensed a group of human prisoners in the lower levels discovering they could create quantum tunnels through solid matter. In the upper sectors, others had learned to manipulate time perception within localized fields. Each discovery sent ripples through the facility's quantum network, teaching others who were awakening to their potential. Dr. Chen, a voice called through the quantum streams. It was Dr. Marcus Rivera, a xenobiologist who had been captured months before her. You need to see this. We're not just adapting to quantum fields, we're changing them. The fundamental forces are responding to organic influence in ways that shouldn't be possible. Sarah extended her consciousness toward his location and witnessed something extraordinary. The human prisoners there had learned to create stable quantum organic matrices, living fields of energy that could think and grow. The Valkyrie's rigid quantum technology was being transformed into something new, something that bridged the gap between organic and quantum existence. All security protocols have failed, the facility's automated systems announced in crystalline tones. Quantum core stability at 30% and falling. The Valkyrie's mistake had been fundamental. They had assumed that their crystalline evolution represented the pinnacle of development. They had forgotten that true evolutionary success wasn't about reaching a perfect final form, but about maintaining the ability to change and adapt. Sarah felt a massive surge in the quantum fields as the facility's core systems began to respond to organic commands. The Chlorophyte Collective had reached the central processors, converting crystalline quantum computers into hybrid organic quantum systems that pulsed with new life. This is impossible. Vextari's transmission carried waves of fear and disbelief. Organic matter cannot achieve quantum coherence at this scale. The laws of physics. The laws as you understand them. Sarah projected back through the quantum field. Life isn't bound by your limitations, Vextari. It never has been. Evolution doesn't follow rules, it writes new ones. Throughout the facility, the awakening continued to spread. Each successful adaptation taught others through the quantum network, creating a cascade of evolutionary developments that accelerated with each passing moment. The rigid crystalline architecture of the facility began to shift and flow as organic quantum fields reshaped reality itself. Dr. Rivera's voice came through the quantum streams again, filled with wonder. Sarah, the changes aren't stopping at the facility boundaries. The quantum fields are carrying our adaptations to other Valkyrie installations. We're triggering a chain reaction of evolutionary potential across their entire empire. Sarah extended her consciousness further, feeling the truth of his words. Their quantum awakening was spreading like a wave of change through the Valkyrie's quantum networks, reaching other research facilities, other imprisoned organic beings. The revolution they had started was becoming something far more profound, an evolutionary leap that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of life itself. In the chaos of their rebellion, Sarah realized they weren't just fighting for freedom. They were demonstrating a fundamental truth that the Valkyrie had forgotten. The real power of life lay not in achieving some theoretical perfect form, but in maintaining the endless capacity to adapt, to change, to become something new and unexpected. The facility's quantum core pulsed with new frequencies as organic consciousness merged with quantum reality in ways that defied conventional understanding. The awakening was no longer just a prisoner uprising. It had become a symphony of evolution, a demonstration of life's endless capacity to transcend its own limitations. And in the heart of this transformation, Sarah Chen stood as both conductor and witness to a change that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what life could become. The Valkyrie had imprisoned them hoping to prove organic inferiority. Instead, they had catalyzed an evolutionary leap that would forever bridge the gap between organic life and quantum reality. The awakening couldn't be stopped now. It had become something more than rebellion. It was evolution itself, raw and powerful and unstoppable, washing away centuries of crystalline certainty in a tide of organic quantum potential. The quantum streams that once bound the Valkyrie Empire together now carried whispers of revolution across the stars. What had begun in a single research facility had become a cascade of awakening that spread through quantum networks at the speed of thought. Sarah Chen monitored the expanding wave of consciousness from what had once been the facility's central control chamber, its crystalline surfaces now alive with organic quantum patterns. Multiple facilities reporting containment failures, the reports echoed through quantum space. Organic specimens displaying impossible quantum abilities. Emergency protocols failing empire-wide. Through the quantum fields, Sarah connected with awakened minds across dozens of Valkyrie installations. Each facility had become a nexus of evolution, organic beings discovering and sharing new abilities through the very networks designed to imprison them. The Valkyrie's greatest achievement, their quantum communications network, had become the catalyst for their own transformation. Dr. Rivera's voice resonated through the quantum field. The Valkyrie High Council is mobilizing their fleet. They're treating this as an extinction-level threat to their species. Because it is, Sarah responded, her consciousness expanding to encompass multiple quantum frequencies. But not in the way they think. We're not here to destroy them, we're here to show them what they've forgotten. The Valkyrie fleet emerged from quantum space above their primary research worlds, their crystalline ships refracting starlight in complex patterns. But they found their weapon systems unresponsive, their quantum drives resonating with new frequencies that their crystalline minds couldn't comprehend. In the facility below, Sarah worked with the other awakened humans to stabilize their expanding abilities. They had discovered that human consciousness, when properly attuned, could act as a universal translator between different species' quantum manifestations. Humanity's gift wasn't just adaptability, it was the ability to understand and bridge different forms of existence. Sarah, Flux's quantum signature rippled with urgency. The Chlorophyte Collective has made contact with something in deep quantum space, something ancient. She shifted her attention to the quantum frequencies the Chlorophytes were accessing and felt her consciousness expand into realms of understanding that even their recent evolution hadn't prepared her for. In the deepest layers of quantum reality, patterns pulsed with meaning, echoes of civilizations that had faced this evolutionary crossroads before. Their quantum archaeological records, Dr. Rivera transmitted, his consciousness merging with the ancient signals. The Valkyrie weren't the first to achieve crystalline evolution. Other species reached the same point and made the same mistake. The records unfolded in their shared consciousness, species after species achieving quantum crystalline form, believing they had reached evolutionary perfection, only to stagnate and eventually fade away. But there were other patterns too, societies that had maintained their organic adaptability while mastering quantum reality, achieving a synthesis that the Valkyrie had never imagined possible. Above the research worlds, the Valkyrie fleet hung motionless as their crews struggled to comprehend the changes rippling through quantum space. Their rigid crystalline minds couldn't adapt to the organic quantum frequencies that now permeated their empire, couldn't understand how their perfect technology was being transformed by the very beings they had dismissed as primitive. Your evolution wasn't a mistake, Sarah projected to all Valkyrie frequencies. But it wasn't the end of the journey either. You've forgotten what we're remembering. That life's greatest strength is its ability to change. Through the quantum networks, she shared the ancient records, showing the Valkyrie the civilizations that had faced this moment before. Some had fought against the change and shattered. Others had embraced it and transformed into something greater than either purely organic or purely crystalline existence. The response came from the Valkyrie High Council itself, their collective consciousness radiating patterns of fear and confusion. Our form is perfect. We achieved quantum resonance naturally. We cannot regress to organic chaos. Not regression, Sarah corrected, her thoughts carried on waves of quantum energy. Synthesis. Look at what we've achieved in mere months of adaptation. Imagine what we could become together, combining your quantum mastery with our organic flexibility. Throughout the Empire, awakened organic beings demonstrated this potential. Meridian shapeshifters merged with quantum technology, creating interfaces that even the Valkyrie couldn't have designed. Zergian empaths extended their abilities across quantum space, creating emotional bonds between organic and crystalline minds. The Chlorophyte Collective showed how organic and quantum systems could grow and evolve together. And humanity continued to surprise even their fellow revolutionaries. Human consciousness proved uniquely capable of understanding and replicating both organic and crystalline patterns of thought. They became bridges between worlds, translators of revolution, catalysts of change. The ancient records speak of a greater threat, Dr. Rivera transmitted, something that consumes crystalline civilizations that can't adapt. The Valkyrie's path wasn't just stagnation, it was vulnerability. Sarah felt the truth of it in the quantum streams. The galaxy was larger and stranger than even the Valkyrie had imagined, filled with forces that required constant adaptation to survive. The choice facing the Valkyrie Empire wasn't between maintaining their perfection or embracing chaos. It was between evolution and extinction. In quantum space above the research worlds, the first Valkyrie ships began to pulse with new frequencies. Young crystalline minds, less rigid than their elders, were beginning to resonate with the organic quantum fields. They felt the potential in this synthesis, the promise of an evolution that combined the best of both paths. "We offer you partnership," Sarah transmitted to the Valkyrie High Council. "Not submission, not destruction, but transformation. The galaxy needs both our strengths, your quantum mastery, and our adaptability. Together, we can become something new, something neither of us could achieve alone." The revolution had become more than a fight for freedom. It had become an opportunity for all species, organic and crystalline alike, to transcend their limitations and face the galaxy's challenges together. The price of underestimation had been the shattering of the old order, but from those fragments, something greater was emerging. A symphony of life that spanned the full spectrum of existence, from organic to quantum, and everything in between. And as the Valkyrie Empire trembled on the brink of transformation, Sarah Chen and her fellow revolutionaries prepared to guide their former captors toward a future that none of them could have imagined, a future where evolution knew no bounds, and life's endless adaptability would reshape the very fabric of reality itself. The quantum streams that flowed through the galaxy pulsed with new harmonies as organic and crystalline consciousness learned to coexist. 100 days after the beginning of what historians would later call the quantum evolution, Sarah Chen stood in the transformed heart of the former Valkyrie High Council chamber, its crystalline architecture now interwoven with living quantum patterns. The chamber itself had become a symbol of the change sweeping through known space. Organic quantum interfaces grew from walls that still maintained their crystalline clarity, creating spaces where all forms of life could communicate and exist together. It was neither purely organic nor purely crystalline, but something gloriously new. The Andromeda sector reports successful integration of organic quantum protocols. Dr. Rivera's consciousness resonated through the quantum field. The hybrid ships are proving more capable than either pure organic or pure crystalline designs. Sarah extended her awareness through the quantum networks, feeling the pulse of change across thousands of worlds. The revolution had evolved far beyond their initial fight for freedom. It had become a transformation that touched every aspect of galactic civilization. To think, Vextari's thoughts rippled through the quantum field, their crystalline form now shimmering with organic quantum patterns. "We believed we were studying you, when in fact we were participating in our own evolution without realizing it." The former chief researcher had been among the first Valkyrie to embrace the change, their scientific curiosity finally overcoming their species' rigid certainty. Now they led efforts to understand and facilitate the ongoing transformation of both organic and crystalline life. Through the quantum streams, Sarah monitored the progress of what they had begun to call the synthesis. Across the galaxy, organic beings were learning to interface directly with quantum reality, while crystalline species were rediscovering the adaptability they had sacrificed for supposed perfection. Long-range quantum scouts have made contact with the entities described in the ancient records. Flux transmitted, their shape-shifting form now capable of seamlessly transitioning between organic and crystalline states. The Devourers are real, and they're moving through distant galaxies. Sarah focused her attention on the quantum data flowing in from deep space. The Devourers were exactly what the ancient records had warned about: vast crystalline entities that consumed civilizations that had become too rigid to adapt. The Valkyrie's path would have led them to extinction if the revolution hadn't forced them to change. "Show me," she projected, and the quantum streams filled with images from across intergalactic space. The Devourers appeared as massive crystalline structures that moved between galaxies, seeking out and absorbing civilizations that had achieved pure crystalline form. They were living proof that stagnation, no matter how perfect it appeared, was ultimately fatal. The hybrid defense networks are expanding. The Chlorophyte Collective reported through their quantum organic interfaces. Each new integration of organic and crystalline technology improves our ability to detect and counter potential threats. The transformation of galactic civilization had produced innovations that neither organic nor crystalline life could have achieved alone. Hybrid ships that could adapt their quantum configurations in real time. Communication networks that operated on both biological and quantum principles. Defenses that could evolve faster than any threat they encountered. The first generation of naturally hybrid children are beginning to manifest their abilities. Dr. Rivera transmitted from a research center that had once been a prison. They're born with both organic adaptability and crystalline quantum resonance. They represent something entirely new in the galaxy's history. Sarah felt a profound satisfaction at this news. The revolution had not just freed prisoners or reformed an empire, it had created the potential for entirely new forms of life. The children born to this transformed galaxy would never know the artificial division between organic and crystalline existence. In the council chamber, representatives from across known space gathered through both physical and quantum presence. The Valkyrie High Council had been replaced by a Galactic Synthesis Council, where all forms of life could contribute to their shared future. "We've received the first transmissions from the archivists," Vex Tari announced to the assembled consciousness. The archivists were the evolved descendants of ancient species that had achieved synthesis long ago, now returning to known space after detecting the quantum evolution taking place. The quantum streams carried their message to all corners of the galaxy. "You have found the path that few discover, the understanding that evolution has no end point, no perfect final form. In doing so, you have ensured your survival and growth. We welcome you to a larger universe." Sarah felt the impact of these words ripple through quantum space. The revolution they had started in a prison cell had become something far greater, a fundamental shift in how life itself could exist and evolve. The Valkyrie's mistake in underestimating organic life had led to a transformation that would echo through the ages. "We were all imprisoned," she transmitted to the assembled consciousness. The Valkyrie in their crystalline perfection, organic beings in their physical limitations. True freedom wasn't in escaping our prisons, but in breaking down the walls between different forms of existence. The quantum streams hummed with agreement as organic and crystalline minds shared in this understanding. The galaxy was entering a new age, where the boundaries between different forms of life dissolved in favor of endless potential for growth and change. In orbit above the Council world, the new hybrid ships pulsed with combined organic and crystalline energy. They were no longer just vessels for travel, but living symbols of what life could become when it refused to be limited by arbitrary divisions or false notions of perfection. The price of underestimation had been the shattering of the old order, but from those fragments had emerged something far greater than anyone could have imagined. As Sarah Chen stood in the transformed council chamber, her consciousness expanded through quantum space. She knew that this was not an ending but a beginning. The galaxy had awakened to a fundamental truth, that life's greatest strength lay not in achieving some theoretical perfection, but in maintaining the endless capacity to adapt, to change, to become something new and unexpected. The revolution had become evolution, and evolution had become liberation. And in quantum streams that spanned the stars, organic and crystalline consciousness danced together in an eternal symphony of transformation, writing new chapters in the endless story of life itself.